Uranus re-enters Gemini on April 25th, 2020. This is a big deal as Uranus stays in every sign for about 8 years, and when it transitions and stays in new territory, we really feel the new frequencies, disruptions, and effects of it. Now, Uranus in Gemini is going to be radically changing our everyday environments. Uranus is about new solutions, advanced technologies. It's a liberation from the old or the status quo. Uranus doesn't want traditional, doesn't want us to do things how they've always been done. So it brings in these new wild, crazy, where did that come from idea that just might work. There's a lot of creative energy here with Uranus. There's the capacity to think in new ways and understand all these new possibilities. And when it moves into Gemini, it directly works with our mind. It allows us to understand things in a whole new way, to see new solutions, new insights, new potentials. It brings about new ways of perceiving our everyday reality and our normal environments. And so with this change, Uranus is going to be opening up all these new ways of living that have always seemed perhaps very futuristic, maybe quite bizarre or unreal. Uranus brings in what we're ready for next that often feels ahead of its time. It's a future-focused energy. It's very advanced and advancing. So there's going to now be areas of our lives where this Gemini expression is going to be quickening, accelerating, also much more expansive than it's ever been before. So a few things I want to dive into though here on this topic, because it's a big topic and we'll be talking about it for the next 8 years. But something that I think is essential is that as Uranus returns to Gemini, it's going to be conjunct the Pleiadean star system, which is now at 0 degrees of Gemini. And I've been getting a lot of downloads about that, about what that means when Uranus, the awakener and the activator, comes into direct contact with more of these Pleiadian energies. Now, the Pleiadian star cluster has been tracked in being at the late degrees of Taurus into early degrees of Gemini. So Uranus has been working with this energy system for a few years now. But as it moves into Gemini and stays in Gemini, there's going to be more of an intentional focus on awakening these Gemini qualities that are ready to advance. And so let me break that down a bit more into what I'm receiving intuitively about what that looks like. And this is actually where I've been taking in a lot of downloads and intuitive messages about what it's going to be, because the first thing they showed me was that the human game is changing. The board game is changing. We're no longer just playing, checkers. This is where there's going to be a whole new board game of reality that we're learning to navigate and move around. And this also pertains directly to Gemini energies. Now, Gemini is your everyday environment. It's where you go in a day. It's your local community. It's the bank, the coffee shop, it's school, it's the office. Gemini is where you need to go to get things done. It's also where you are connecting with a lot of stimuli and energy in your everyday environment. Gemini also relates to what we perceive, think, and contemplate. It's what your mind focuses in on. It's also about more specifics. Gemini can go into the details and want to know, okay, what is really happening here? What are the facts? What do I need to understand, especially in a technological way? Gemini wants to focus in on what is going on, what's important to understand, and what's important to know. Now, in our everyday environments, Uranus is going to come through and it's going to make some parts of our lives more efficient, more automated. We're going to be seeing even more technologies, more robots, more things that pull in these new computer systems, new ways of moving information and moving data. In other words, we're going to start living in an everyday world that is faster moving developments, faster moving information and solutions, and things happening where perhaps you don't take forever to wait in line somewhere. There's greater efficiency in moving you through a process. This relates also to transportation, how you go about your everyday experiences, getting to where you need to go. I'm thinking of specifically the new self-driving Tesla vehicles, where you as the driver sit in the vehicle behind the steering wheel and you don't have to touch the steering wheel at all. You don't need to have your foot on the pedal or the brakes. The vehicle does it all, essentially making everybody in the car a passenger. Fully automated, or at least that's what's being tested. So this is just an example of how Uranus and Gemini is going to be changing our everyday experiences, how we move around town, how we go about our daily lives. We're going to see this in more resources, even more appliances in our homes. We're going to see more solutions that look really cool at first. I was getting the vision of office chairs that you sit in and you just like fly around the office or move around a space very quickly, getting to where you need to go without walking. That's probably a solution or an option coming this way. Clearly, there's pros and cons with everything. And I'm just throwing out some things that are important to consider that are on their way into our reality. But just know this is where we're going to start to see things that we always thought were really futuristic now arriving and being experienced in our reality. So Uranus and Gemini is going to quickly change parts of our lives, and it's going to feel like there's no going back. Again, pros and cons with that, right? So we're going to have to stay aware of what we're choosing. Gemini is about choices. Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I want this? Do I want that? Uranus is actually going to come in and feel like you have to make faster choices. There's less time to sit with something and contemplate it deeply. Rather, you could feel that there could even be like an electrical current of energy that you're meant to follow and pursue. So this is where we're going to see the energetic effects of these new energies. In other words, you're going to perhaps enter into a space and you're going to be picking up on the frequencies in a whole new way. And it could be hard to put it into words, even to fully understand it. Uranus and Gemini is also activating more of our neural pathways, expanding our capacity to understand what we didn't know and to give us new ways of viewing the world, new ways of understanding what could happen. And I mean that in a creative sense. What could be created? What could be considered? What is no longer bizarre or weird? Now it just might work. It just might be a solution. There's a sense here of we're opening up to more expanded levels of consciousness that we're then integrating on a daily level. So for example, you could go into a meeting for work and just get some kind of really interesting downloads or fast moving thoughts that you want to contribute. And you might think, oh, I don't know if people want to hear this. I don't know if they're going to understand it. But chances are if you offer it to the group or to others, they just might easily pick it up in ways that surprise you, because everyone is feeling these faster energies at some level of their being. And so maybe a year ago or 3 years ago, you're like, I would never have said that in a meeting. But now there is actually energetic space to offer this option. So we're going to see that coming through. We're going to start to feel that it's okay to communicate in new ways and to express ourselves through more energetic languages. Now, here's what I mean by that. It's one thing to be expressing yourself verbally and to saying what's on your mind, what you're thinking, sharing your thoughts, right? But it's a whole other thing to be reading the frequency and the energy of the person and picking up even more information, another version of the story, or just tapping into more energy that is unspoken. Uranus in Gemini is going to be doing this, and it could feel quite dualistic, where you realize that what is being communicated is only a part of the story. It could even be a sense of you are computing information and receiving it at a much broader level. For example, one thing that I have been doing for a number of years now is I basically read people's toroidal field, where they're saying one thing, but their energy is computing or expressing something else. And that's where you can see a disconnect in the words that are spoken versus the energy that is truly felt. So reading someone's toroidal field is going to bring you a lot more information understanding than simply listening to their words or reading what is written. Uranus in Gemini is expanding our capacity to take in more information. But the tricky part then is understanding how to interpret it, how to read it. And that's part of what we're going to be learning and part of how we're going to be evolving during these Uranus and Gemini years. And so you might find that you are reading energy at a whole new level. You're having new experiences of people, spaces, or situations that could take a minute to fully process and understand. Uranus is one of the fastest moving processing systems. And so when it moves into Gemini, which also likes speed, things can be moving too quickly where you wonder if you missed something, if you're forgetting something, or if something important has been overlooked. And so this is a fast moving interpretation of communications and energies that we're going to be feeling and picking up on quite rapidly. And I feel this is also what is going to be expanding our minds, our neurological processes. And you might feel it rapidly or maybe even subtly at first. Of course, it depends on how you experience energy and how you read it. But we are going to become more skilled at reading energy and picking up on frequencies. This also means that there's now going to be more of a focus and more intentionality needed with our own frequencies, with what we're communicating, because that's also going to be felt and others are going to pick up on it too. So this is where it's going to be quite interesting to see what we are essentially learning about each other and learning about ourselves as Uranus moves into Gemini and activates all the ways we communicate. So not just through what we have learned to write, say, and express, but I'm talking about your holistic energetic communication is going to become more important. And with this energy, we are going to be able to do so more rapidly. So this is where it gets interesting, because you might second guess yourself or doubt what you're reading or picking up on. It does take time to trust yourself at this level and to believe what you're sensing or feeling, because there's often no external validation. Yes, you could ask somebody if they felt similar or if they were picking up on something, but even if they don't, it doesn't discount what you were picking up on or what you felt or what you were reading. So this is actually more of a personal experience of your capacity to read energy and to trust what is showing up for you, because it will be based on your own energy, which relates directly to your own journey, your own healing, and the current state of how you tune in to energies. All of this also opens us up to a higher exchange of information, being able to tap into higher energies, higher communications, and higher knowledge bases than what we were previously accustomed to. And so this is going to be quite fascinating when you start to feel it, whether you sense it uploading or just realizing that you're getting more information than ever before. This is part of how we are evolving both collectively and individually, and it's also part of our cosmic growth. And as Uranus is conjunct and working with the Pleiadean star system, we're able to evolve our own communication capacity. Now, this does involve telepathy. This involves expansion of the third eye and the images and visuals you're able to see and tap into. This could also be experienced through remote viewing or through any other forms of communication that previously were unavailable to us or to the human population. That's because we're moving into being more cosmic citizens, and we're able to have more direct connections to these gifts, meaning we're going to be embodying them more often and more regularly. But again, you have to trust it for yourself, because nobody else can validate it or give you that exact confirmation. This is also where we are embodying more wholeness of what we're capable of. And we're also able to practice this more often and more effortlessly with Uranus and Gemini. And so this would be something to trust or to work with if you feel called to do so, and to open up to what is going to be perhaps easier than you expect with this particular transit. Now, Uranus and Gemini is also going to ask us to think in new ways, to stay curious, and to stay mindful. Now, there can be a lot going on with these changes. As I mentioned, a lot of these rapid accelerations and new potentials, possibilities, just a lot happening. And yet what we're also meant to tap into is that part of yourself that has an instant knowingness before you overthink it. Because we can be great overthinkers, right? We can be wonderful at over-processing, overthinking to the point of exhaustion. But this is a faster moving energy where chances are you know the right answer right away. You know what to say, you know what to do, you know where to go. But again, you could second guess it until you feel strong enough in your core to believe it and to know that it's real for you. So we're going to have a lot of changes that we are going to be processing at different levels of our being. But the heart of this, or one of the main changes and evolutionary shifts of Uranus and Gemini, is that you're able to work with your own higher consciousness more rapidly. You're able to believe it, able to trust it, able to choose what is correct for you much faster. And so we're going to keep discussing this Uranus and Gemini. I'm going to have another video for you here shortly, talking about this from another angle. But I wanted to offer this insight here that as Uranus moves into Gemini, we are embarking upon a whole new version of the human game, where again, more rapid, accelerated changes in our everyday environments and more permanent changes in our own evolutionary communication style and our capacity to read energy to understand energy as a language, and to know that we are these multi-dimensional, multi-sensory beings who can tap into all kinds of information at any time. So I hope this gave you some insights into what might be showing up for you quite rapidly as Uranus enters Gemini again, the end of April. And I look forward to talking about this even more as we will embark upon some whole new areas of study, learning, and exploration. The way we live life is changing rapidly. It's here. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and where we go next. So I'll have another video for you soon discussing more about this Uranus and Gemini. Also, I had videos for you last year when Uranus was in Gemini from July 7th until November 7th, 2025. And so those also give you some understandings of the topics and themes of this energy. I would love to hear in the comments below what you have realized from last year about Uranus and Gemini. I always love reading your comments and your remarks. By the way, I'm the one who reads them. I do read them. It's really me who likes them and hearts them. But I would love to hear what you have experienced or what has activated for you since last July, because that could be giving you a preview of what's to come here over the next number of years. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I'll be back here soon with another video. Wishing you a beautiful day. Thank you.